Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 135 of Speaking from the Heart. And I'm ready for you. I've had my castle guards on standby this whole entire time, and I know that you're going to attack me. Just wait. I have a plan that I'm going to execute on, and you're not going to know any of the details until you actually do it. So just try me. Try doing it. Try doing what you really wanted to do for all this time. Because on today's episode, we're going to talk about the unintentional castles that we build. I know you never thought on a professional or personal development podcast we'd be talking about castles. But I'm not just talking about any sort of castle that might come to mind, whether that is something that you found on fictional TV or even found on some sort of website in which you were researching growing up. Because I'm sure that each time that you've looked something up like this, whether it was in books, illustrations, or any other sort of material, you've always had a picture of what a castle would look like. But I'm not talking about the castles in which they're physical in nature. I'm talking about the castles that we erect in our lives. And I love this concept because I learned about it way back when I got my life coaching certification. And the instructors talked about this presence of a castle. It's what we build amongst each other. It's not only the things that we are thinking about as the moats, the towers, the guards, the throne room, even the treasure room for that matter. I'm talking about the things that are representations or even illustrations for that matter of all the things that we put up as safeguards, things that we oftentimes don't look at as not only the things in which we don't want to be, but yet they're manifestations. Even the rooms that we might have in our castle might be booby-trapped. They might be full of traps. They might be full of guards ready to attack you. Situations in which you might have never thought you would find in a castle, let alone even the people, maybe even the paintings, even the furnishings of the castle represent who we are. In every sense of the word, the castles that we build are often the things that we represent in our lives. Castles for a long time have been known for strength and resiliency. That's why you see many of them even in European countries that have lasted for centuries on end. But what if we considered that the physical manifestations of those castles might not be a good thing for even ourselves to think of them as a fictional or emotional or mental type of castle? Maybe the guards that are defending a certain type of event or memory that often triggers people with depression or anxiety are oftentimes the things that we closely guard, while other rooms we might be able to freely enter into, the closets in which they have all kinds of different clothing, all kinds of different bedroom furnishings, maybe even studies for that matter. Even this concept, which I've learned through life coaching, has evolved into even some of the therapy that I've done, working on myself, imagining what the room is around me. Many of my psychologists would know what that technique is, and I would certainly leave it to you to explain to your clients that might be interested in exploring what that might be, because it's not meant for everyone. But having a visualization, having that understanding of what's around us, why we can't have peaceful passage through our castles, can be a gateway or a window looking into that castle, if you will, of somebody that's either doing really well or doing really bad. How do you look at your castle and how do you represent it towards other people? Well, it's simple. If the things that you're trying to cover up all the time, whether it's some sort of addiction that you have, maybe it's some sort of pain that you're hiding, or even other sort of issues that come up throughout your life, might be stored away in some of the closets, maybe even in some of the locked rooms, maybe even dungeons for that matter, of your castle, if they even exist. But even then, maybe the places that you allow people to fully enter into, whether it's the happiest aspect of your life, might be something that you really want to show off. It might be the throne room with the encrusted diamonds on your crown. Maybe it's even in the scepter that you're holding, being the king of all kings, being able to rule over their subjects. But maybe it's even in the people that you're trying to work with. Maybe they are trying to find places in which they should exist. Because those people, they might be good people, but maybe they're slowly stealing things from that castle that you never thought that could be stolen in the first place. I'm talking about not just the time that you spend in a castle, but also the illustration of what you think might be the most important things within that castle as well. Let's not even talk about the color. Is it a dark, despondent castle? Is it a very light-hearted castle in which it has many different elements that bring out the natural light that is allowed to be entered into? Let's face it, we don't want to always be exposed to the light, especially if we want to hide things in the darkness. Does it have features in which you're trying to defend that castle? Maybe you have a moat that surrounds it with a drawbridge that only allows certain people to come in and come out. Is your castle willing to have people that come in, no matter what kind of background they have? Are there even some things that you're afraid of people seeing? Maybe even some of the individuals that you invite as guests that you try to tuck away, whether you cover them with some sort of rug, maybe even have a pitfall, if you will, into some of the other areas of the castle that you normally would dispose of an enemy very quickly. Let's even talk about the bedrooms. What do you have inside your bed that maybe is not even something that you want to share? Each of the rooms in our castle have a different way in which we look at the lens of our lives. Whether we invite those people in or not is totally the question that we're asking today. What is it that you build inside your castle, whether it's intentional or not, that you should be working on instead of trying to defend? I can't tell you how many times that I have built my own castle just thinking that I was going to do really well with just defending everything that I've ever gained. I thought that hard work, even working on that castle for that matter, would make such a big difference in people's perceptions when they came to visit. In other words, every time that I had somebody over, whether it's in my office, whether it's in my apartment, whether it's in some other place in which I know that I have to look pretty darn good, I always worried about what other people saw of my castle. But even then, if I didn't care about what my castle looked like, would you still invite others to come over? Would you even have that conversation with someone if they're really wanting to work on their castle in the first place? Maybe even help to rebuild walls. Maybe even fill in that moat that you have around it with all the alligators. Maybe even reduce the number of guards that are really defending what is on your heart. But oh yes, that's what it really all draws down to. The ultimate question that we've continued to ask on this podcast: what is on your heart? I think that we build castles because of the things that we try to hide within our soul, within our hearts, within our minds. And we try to use the castle as a defense mechanism. Maybe even times try to use it as an offensive weapon, trying to attack people that are trying to get into places where they shouldn't be attacking, where they shouldn't be in the first place. How do we find peaceful passage, let alone worrying about the permission that we give to people? How can we overcome that image of a dark, dainty castle and have it be an inviting place in which people can stand stronger in the long run? It's not really that simple. Unlike other episodes in which I feel like we have a simple solution to a complex problem, your castle is developed in a lot of different ways. The personal, the professional, the business, the public speaking, the resumes, the interview preparation, all these different things that I even work on, each have their own different type of castle. That's even what I deal with clients, making sure that we can get to the root of what is really happening, to be able to understand what is truly going on in order to understand and work through what you might be going through. No castle is unique, which is why you see castles of all different shapes and sizes, and that's why you have so many different types of rulers to even the most friendly of all individuals. Probably even the most contemporary example would be looking at the British monarchy, looking at the ways in which they conduct business, And even if you have one opinion over another when it comes to what their castle looks like, we all are entitled to the ways in which we manage our own house, our own castle, if you will. Are we really doing a service or a disservice when we're putting up all these walls, all these things that we have going on, and not letting people come in and out? Well, I have to tell you that for some people, they never be able to get out of their own castles. They are stuck in the ways in which they've always learned throughout most of their life, while other people, easily enough, can break down those walls and create new rooms in which they're able to situate themselves in and feel comfortable about the progress and the progression that they're entering into, regardless of what role that they play. I know that for some people, this is easy. For others, it's not. I love the fact that we can all have different castles, and I respect the fact here on Speaking from the Heart that your castle might not look the same as mine, or even somebody else's for that matter. And if we were all similar in terms of our castles, we would not have the individuality, let alone the identity that we represent. It's even the things that we build that allow us to speculate and even make improvements on. That's why I even talk about learning from other people and growing from those experiences, whether that is even reading or through a podcast or even some other area in which I've even challenged on previous episodes. But even with people that show up unannounced to your castle, and even then, when you're facing and eliminating some of the pitfalls, maybe even some of the dungeons, maybe even some of the places that you normally don't go to and you don't use anymore, it means that you have to invite yourself to stand stronger, to be willing to learn and grow in the ways in which you should be growing. But even then, knowing that your castle is ever evolving. The ever evolving that we've already talked about on this show is just about learning more of who you are and understanding and believing that you have unlimited potential to develop anything that you could ever develop in your life, just by not letting it stand in your way. That could be a castle in itself. That's why I even say that castles that come in all shapes and sizes have to have by design something that might be the reason why it was erected in the first place. So if you're not sure why that castle stands in the way it does today because you unintentionally built it, it might be time to examine if that castle is really needed. If you have had that problem with a friend that you've been holding back for so long and you have kept them in the dungeon, maybe it's time to go talk to them and release them from the jail cell that they've been in. If you've had somebody that has really hurt you and you have not yet forgot about that situation and what they have done to you, maybe, just maybe, they might be one of the guards that have been silently watching you. It's time to walk up to them and strike up a conversation. Maybe there are things in the kitchen, maybe there are places within your treasure room, maybe there are other areas of your life that might be missing that all-important piece of the overall puzzle. The block that is missing from your overall castle wall that needs to be repaired once and for all. Castles can come not only in the shapes and sizes that we have already mentioned, but they come in the ways in which we want to address those ever deteriorating situations that might be happening. And even if those things are not deteriorating, they might be things that you've been putting off for so long that now is time to address. Castles do not have to be the source of inspiration or even of negativity. They are places in which we live. We have to be able to live within the comfort, within the care, within the compassion of the walls in which we surround ourselves with every day. And so if you're not doing that for yourself, in which you're working on your own castle, let alone letting even other people in, or even letting other people out for that matter, you might have a dysfunctional castle. Maybe the castle that you have always held on to needs to be finally let go of in order to be able to have a new owner that can take occupancy. Whether you think you are a king or a queen, a prince or a princess, a castle guard or a cook, maybe even a knight for that matter, always saving the day of the many peasants that live outside of it and around that castle, just know that you still have a valuable place. And maybe sometimes walking out of that castle could be the biggest part of winning your salvation back. Maybe even finding the freedom, not being trapped in those walls that you've always been trapped in. I'll leave you with this note. A long time ago, when I did learn about this concept, I once examined what those walls looked like, but I put it to the side, thinking that my castle walls were mightier than ever before. I had a good job. I was doing really well with learning all kinds of new things. My life was getting better, but the problem that I had was that one thing led to another inside my own castle that I never paid attention to. And one day, it all caught up to me, and the walls of my castle fell in. The castle that we build doesn't mean that it stays forever. It takes a lot of work to maintain, which is why I am asking you to examine your castle today. Don't let it go another day where you might have somebody or something that's holding you back. But even then, it's okay to have a conversation with some of the individuals that represent the feelings, the problems, the situations that you have spent some time in. Because you are allowed to talk. You are allowed to be with other people. You are allowed to address what these issues are. Because I rather that you step outside your castle from time to time and allow me to help you. I would hope that somebody was helping you, even if you feel trapped inside that castle, because it's time to not be part of it anymore if it's holding you back. But if you have a nice castle, please think of me, Joshua D. Smith, the next time that you are holding a party, because I would love to celebrate within that big castle, and I think those castles are pretty darn cool to be able to take photos in, even if they're just selfies. Because those selfies are really one big special thing, especially when we're building our own castles to compare. When we compare, by the way, we're able to learn a lot more about ourselves, especially when we're invited. And that's a great feeling to have inside, knowing that you're loved and appreciated. Thanks for listening to episode number 135 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.